I'm going to try and spread some aloha into this room.
Mhm.
I'm taking a lead from my friend, Senator, sitting to my left. Well, at least you and I are very color coordinated today. So since 2018, I have been asking every nominee that comes before the committees on which I sit the two questions that I asked you at the start of my time, namely whether or not they have a history of sexual assault or harassment. This is something I started in 2018 to make sure that harassment and abuse that women mainly have put up with since, as far as I'm concerned, time immemorial, didn't continue to get swept under the rug. I found these questions to be important for nominees to the judiciary. As Chief Justice Roberts stated in his 2017 year-end report on the federal judiciary, events in recent months have illuminated the depth of the problem of sexual harassment in the workplace, and events in the past few weeks have made clear that the judicial branch is not immune. Here are just a few examples of abusive practices by federal judges. In December 2017, 6 former law clerks and staffers accused Ninth Circuit Judge Alex Kozinski of subjecting them to a range of inappropriate sexual conduct and comments. In September 2019, the 10th Circuit Judicial Council issued an order finding that District Court Judge Carlos Mejia, apologize if I mispronounce his last name, had harassed multiple employees over a period of years, including by subjecting them to sexually suggestive comments, inappropriate text messages, and excessive non-work related conduct. In February 2020, former law clerk to the late Ninth Circuit Judge Stephen Reinhardt accused the judge of a months-long harassment campaign. And these are a few of the cases that we know about. There are undoubtedly many more we don't know about, both because of the power imbalance between federal judges and their clerks and employees, who often rely on connections and recommendations to advance in their careers, and because of the lack of legal recourse available to the judicial employees. Many may not realize this, but federal judicial branch employees are not protected by the foundational federal statutes, such as Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, that prohibit discrimination and retaliation. And that's why I introduced, along with Chair Durbin and Senators Whitehouse and Murray, the Judicial Accountability Act, which would ensure the more than 30,000 employees of the federal judiciary have strong statutory rights and protections against discrimination, sexual harassment, retaliation, and other forms of workplace conduct. I know you can't comment on legislation, so I won't ask you whether you support the Judicial Accountability Act. Instead, I'd like to hear what you do to make sure your chambers is a safe, inclusive place to work.
Thank you, Senator. I, as you know, have been a judge now for almost a decade, and I take my responsibilities not only to hear and decide cases seriously, but also my responsibility as an employer, that I bring law clerks into my chambers. I was a law clerk to 3 wonderful federal judges who were role models for me, and I try to act as a role model to my law clerks. I try to bring in people who have the respect of others, people who come with strong recommendations, people who I think will get along with one another, and certainly people who I think will get along with me. And we create a little group, a working group, and I think that it's worked out well.
And I would think that you would make sure that there are no instances of inappropriate behavior, sexual harassment from any of your clerks or employees.
That's absolutely correct.
During our courtesy meeting, I enjoyed learning more about your background and family. And of the 9 sitting justices of the Supreme Court, only 3 Justices Alito, Breyer, and Kagan were educated in our public school system. And you would, as far as I'm concerned, make a welcome addition to the court from that standpoint as a public school graduate myself. So public high schools educate people from all backgrounds, and most people go to public schools. Most people don't get to go to private schools. So your classmates probably came from different racial and ethnic backgrounds, incomes, social statuses, academic abilities, athletic abilities, among others. How, if at all, has your public school experience shaped the person you are and your approach to the law?
Thank you, Senator. I was very fortunate to go to public school in Miami, Florida. I had a wide range of classmates, and it was a wonderful opportunity to get to know people who were different than me, and to learn at the end of the day that they were not so different than I am, even if they came from different backgrounds. And I've talked a lot about my debate team. That was one of the activities that I engaged in and spent a lot of time with my colleagues on the debate team and with my wonderful coach. And you learn how to support each other, how to speak across difference, how to communicate with different kinds of people. And it was a wonderful experience, and as I've mentioned, in many ways different than the generation before, who in Florida were segregated by law.
So I take it that not only did you have, I would say, a broad experience of encountering people from all different walks of life and backgrounds, but there was still commonality that you had.
Very much so.
And that is very much exemplified in your approach to your work. I also talk with you about the importance of the creative part of our lives, because I think lawyers tend to be very left brain, and I know that you are a very well-rounded person. And so I asked you, what do you do to pay attention to the creative side of your life?
Thank you for the question. I took up, not too long ago, but took up the fiber arts, as they say. My mother is an expert crochet artist. She makes beautiful pieces of all kinds, and I always wanted to do that. I always wanted to, and she tried to teach me when I was younger, and it didn't quite turn out. But as I have gone along in my career and wanting to have some sort of a creative outlet, and especially in times of high stress, I started pining for something to do to express my creative side. And I bought a book on crochet. I talked to my mom. I started making hats and scarves, and then I moved to knitting during one of my confirmation hearing scenarios, because I needed something to keep my mind off of the stress. So I have a basement full of yarn if you'd like to come over.
I think that's another way that you're connecting to the people who really mean a lot to you. The creative outlet is really important to me because in a changing world, I think it is our ability to be creative in our approaches and how we think about things that will enable us to deal with the rapid changes that happen every day in these days. I view you as a consensus builder, and so I know that in your work with the Sentencing Commission, you really worked hard to come up with some 95% of the time. In this very diverse group, there was consensus in your recommendations. How important do you think consensus is on what I characterized yesterday as a very ideologically split Supreme Court?
I think consensus is very important. It was one of the things that I most admired about having the opportunity to work for Justice Breyer as a law clerk, to observe his process for reaching out to colleagues and trying to collaborate in his thought process about the outcomes of cases. And it's something that I tried to emulate when I was on the Sentencing Commission, which, as you said, is a very diverse body. And I saw in that context the importance of trying to reach common ground with respect to your determinations.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. To illustrate the kind of broad support that this nominee has, I would like to enter into the record 2 letters, one signed by 1,000 public defenders from all across the country, and another signed by 48 prosecutors from across the country. Judge Jackson, I have very much enjoyed the privilege of talking with you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And it will be my privilege to support your nomination.
Thank
Aloha.
you, Senator.
Thank you very much, Senator.